morning and welcome to Red Cloud's 2022 Pre-PDAC Mining Showcase. My name is Alina Islam and I'm a Senior Research Associate here at Red Cloud Securities. Next, we are pleased to host Arena Minerals Inc. and have with us William Randall, President and CEO of the company. William, you will have 15 minutes for your presentation, followed by a 5-minute Q&A session. Attendees, please feel free to ask your questions using the Q&A link. With that, William, I'll turn it over to you to start the presentation.
All right, thank you very much, Lena. Thanks for the intro. And so we're Arena Minerals. We're a lithium brine developer with projects in northern Argentina in the Lithium Triangle. Our main project, as you can see here on this slide, is the Sal de la Puna asset, which is roughly about a third of the Pastos Grandes Basin or Salar, which we share with what used to be Millennial Lithium, which is now acquired by Lithium Americas. They're our neighbors. It was acquired for $510 million roughly, closed earlier this year. And also in the basin, there's a private developer, an oil and gas producer in Argentina that owns the Pastos Grandes Pozuelos project in the same basin and scheduled for construction towards the end of this year. We own about 11,000 hectares and a resource in it, and we're developing it aggressively towards production, mostly with our business model that is slightly different to what most developers are doing in Argentina. What we aim to do is produce a brine concentrate that is very similar to the spodumene concentrates, except it has twice as much lithium, 6% lithium instead of 6% lithium oxide. We do this in evaporation ponds, so very energy efficient and low carbon footprint. And this can be sold worldwide. It's a product that used to be sold all the way across to China, but more importantly, can supply the developers and carbonate and chloride producers in Argentina, all of which are scheduled to be in construction and production over the next couple of years, including those operated by our strategic partner, Ganfeng Lithium, and one of our strategic investors, Lithium Americas. This approach has lots of benefits. One is shorter time frame to production, lower capex, and lower opex, while still retaining a lot of the upside as far as the pricing go. And just as crucial, or even more, is lower operational risk. Carbonate plants are chemical plants that require a 99.5 or more purity in their product. Very hard to operate at 4,000 meters above sea level in an infrastructure challenged area, such as the one in northern Argentina. We believe this is the future, a bit of a hub and spoke model, in which we can supply what is going to be a major industry in northern Argentina over the next decade. The management here is a key part of what we do. We've done this before. Eduardo Morales is leading the charge here. He is a veteran in the lithium brine industry, was the president and CEO of Rockwood as it sold to Albemarle for $6.2 billion, chemical engineer by training. He built basically the world's first evaporation ponds in the Atacama, then built their lithium carbonate plant, produced the world's first battery grade lithium carbonate, just as batteries were beginning to take place, and worked with Rockwood all the way to its sale in 2014 before joining myself and the rest of the Lithium X team, developing an asset that I had discovered in 2009, developed through to feasibility, and then eventually, along with Eduardo, we advanced this through to construction by the time it was sold in 2016 for just under 300 million. In 2018. After that is when we started Arena. We built Arena around this concept, around this business model, acquired Antofalla, Sal de la Puna, and partnered up with Ganfeng and Lithium Americas. So I've introduced Eduardo. I'm a geologist by training, born and raised in Argentina. I've been in the industry since 2009, 2008, when I first went down into Argentina again, after studying here in Canada and working up in Timmins mostly, to develop lithium brine projects. Our board is rounded out by a board member, Sam Pigott, representing Ganfeng Lithium, and Ignacio Celorio, who is president of Latin America for Lithium Americas Corp. The four of us are working tightly on a daily basis to try to advance our projects through to production as quickly as possible. The approach that we have is not novel. It is not something that has never been done in the industry. So it's not a huge technological risk. What we've done really is we've adapted what Atacama has been doing for decades and what produces most of the world's battery grade lithium carbonate. In Atacama, they also produce a 6% concentrate and truck it 240 kilometers down to the coast to a place called Antofagasta, where they have their own carbonate plant. We're decoupling the two processes, just doing that first step, and then trucking it and selling it to existing plants around the world. But just to point out that this has applications in today's world and is actually producing most of the world's battery grade lithium carbonate. And of course, this process that's been used in Atacama was developed and put together by Eduardo Morales himself, who is the chairman of our company. So here's a quick snapshot of biggest difference in your typical liming process versus ours. The typical liming process, what you'll see in most of the feasibility studies and assets going into construction now in Argentina. It's 4 steps, primarily. The first one shared with ours, which is basically the mining side, which is pumping the brines. Lithium in lithium brines is contained in a brine, so a liquid form. You pump it out and you put it in evaporation ponds to reduce the amount of water and therefore go concentrating lithium. In the liming process, they treat the brine early on with lime to remove the magnesium, concentrate to 1%, at which time you still have a huge volume of liquid present. You evaporate roughly about 50% of the volume, so you can't transport that large distances. You're also leaving a lot of impurities in the brine, which makes you have a carbonate plant attached to your evaporation ponds at 4,000 meters above sea level in the very remote parts of Argentina. Because the product going into the carbonate plant still has a lot of impurities in it, when it comes out of the carbonate plant, you typically have a technical grade lithium carbonate that then needs to be upgraded by yet another step and another plant also attached to the primary carbonate plant. And this step is tough to operate, very often not working and not producing the quality required. Our step does away with that 4th step, primarily because as we, on the first step, we'll also pump our brines out, we fill our ponds, but we treat it with a calcium chloride that we produce in our second asset, our Antofagasta asset. And this allows us to concentrate all the way to over 5%, our target being 6% lithium. That extra time in the evaporation ponds produces a much cleaner, higher purity, and lower volume product. About 92% of our water gets evaporated during this process. So we're left with something pure, valuable, and that can be transported worldwide. This will then feed into a carbonate plant, but because it doesn't have all these impurities in it, it typically produces battery grade lithium carbonate right out of the primary plant, doing away with the additional CapEx and OpEx of that 4th step. We plan to sell our product after the 2nd step, therefore shortening the time frame, the CapEx, and the OpEx to production. Quick snapshot of where our assets are. As you can see, it's in Northwest Argentina, kind of in what's called the lithium triangle. We're smack in the middle of it in the Salta province, which is one of the best mining friendly provinces in Argentina. And as you can see, we're surrounded by all the major developers here, all of which are slowly being acquired by major international companies over the last few years. Big influx of capital into this region over the last 2 or 3 years. Zooming into our salar, our basin here, you can see this is the 3 companies I mentioned in the intro. We're in the gray portion there, 11,000 hectares, with most of our work and development happening in these claims over here. Immediately beside us is Millennial Lithium, now part of Lithium Americas. They were acquired and it closed earlier this year for 510 million. And of course is an asset that they're hoping to develop to complement their existing operations about 100 kilometers north in Cauchari. Just to remind you, Lithium Americas and Ganfeng Lithium operate a 50-50 joint venture. They're currently in construction, scheduled for production of 20,000 tons schedule and the 40,000 tons later on, later this year. And the orange portion there is this private oil and gas company that I was mentioning before, Plus Petrol. Their lithium arm is called Litica. They're in advanced stages of pilot plant, and I believe scheduled to make a construction decision towards the end of the year. It's another advantage that we have here in this basin, which allows us to really fast track our project, is that both of our neighbors are at advanced feasibility levels, have completed pilot plants, and we have access to a lot of this data, which is public, which brings us a lot closer to those levels than if we were in a separate basin with no work. Another huge advantage of this basin is the depth and extent of the aquifers. Aquifers are what host the lithium brines. And as you can see here, we get lithium all the way down to below 650 meters below surface. And in fact, the aquifers get better both in grade and the amount of brine that can be extracted, which is the specific yield, as you get deeper. And this is pretty unique for this salar, which is why if you look at the map and you're wondering, why a salar that looks smaller than many of the others can host such a large and high quality resource, it's because of the depth extent of the aquifers themselves. The other thing to point out here is this is one of the tier 1 salars in Argentina. Great grades, both in lithium and low impurities as well, magnesium and sulfate and boron being the primary ones. So it is what's considered one of the top tier salars, most of which, as I was saying before, are getting acquired by major companies. So we're very fortunate to have a very significant piece of Pasto Grandes, and gives us much more security in developing the asset rather than struggling with more difficult chemistry or lower grades. Zoom in here on the work that's been done and the work that we're doing. We have a work program underway. We're drilling currently. We have pilot plant operating. Our total budget for the next few months is 4 million, which 35% of that is funded by Ganfeng Lithium as a result of their ownership in the asset themselves. As a reminder, they own about 18% of the company of Arena Minerals and 35% of Sal de la Puna. The work program consists of drilling. Those are the collars that you see here. These are all drill holes, focusing primarily on Almafuerte and Graciela claims, where we want to get our existing resource of around 560,000 tons into the 1 million ton range. The 1 million ton range for us is kind of the crucial step. With 1 million tons, you can advance through to feasibility and construction on a very meaningful annual production of 10,000 tons, 20,000 tons for over 20 years. Any resources over that, it's great to have in backup, but won't contribute directly to your MPV. The red and black are the measured and indicated portions of what is now Lithium America's resource. So as you can see, it extends right up onto our land. So very, very high likelihood that it continues onto our portion of the basin. There are already 3 holes in our area. So the likelihood of us getting to that 1 million threshold is very high. And on site, we also have our pilot plant, excuse me, which aims at producing the 6% lithium con. We should have results out on that over the next 2 or 3 months as well. Batches sort of each time improving mostly on the recovery and the quality of our concentrate. And drill results coming shortly as well. We have a first hole almost completed. We're down 520 meters on a 650 meter hole. Drilling at those depths is pretty slow, but so far our lithology looks great, mostly sand and gravel with a high content of brine. There's a quick snapshot of what our area looks like. As you can see, it's flat and dry. A lot of these salars in December and January do tend to flood, which makes it difficult to build ponds on the ideally flat spots in the center of the salar. So we're all been forced to build ponds off on the edges of the salar. If you zoom into Oro Cobre, Lithium Americas, etc., all of the ponds are off on the edges, and this is kind of what they look like. We're fortunate in that it's already very flat and easily moved around to form lithium to form the evaporation ponds. that's one of our drills drilling right now. We will be developing this area over the next year. You'll see engineering studies showing what these ponds would look like, the sizing of the ponds that we can host, and what the production profile could look like as well. And here we put together a quick snapshot. This is the last 2 slides of what valuations, we're working towards as we advance our project. I went from less to more developed. Lithium Americas being in the final stages of construction and almost in production, with 50% a joint venture with Ganfeng. Ourselves being at a inferred resource stage, but moving quickly towards a feasibility and a construction decision over the next few months. Galan Lithium has a PEA in place already with nearly a 500 million market cap, which would be, of course, our next step: get the resource defined, get the processing defined, and compile that into an economic study, whether it be a PEA or the likes. And then going up, Neolithium, that was recently sold to Zijin. They already were at the next step. They had advanced pilot plants, environmental permits in place, and ready for construction. Was sold for almost $1 billion. And then Lithium Americas, I say, another valuation up. Put it about half of that valued on Argentina, so $2 billion valued on Argentina in construction. So I think there's a lot of upside here as we develop our project and advance this through to production, especially with the help of our 2 partners, Lithium Americas and Ganfeng, which are operating plants in Argentina that could take our 6% brine feed. Shares outstanding, just under 400 million. We got just under 7 million in cash, so we're well funded for this year's work program. And as you can see there, the stock is tightly held primarily by Ganfeng, Lithium Americas, and the management itself. And with that, I come to the end of the presentation. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, William, for a great presentation. We do have a couple of questions. So first off, you had mentioned the $4 million work program that's underway. Approximately how much of this is complete, or how much of the drilling is already complete?
So we're just nearing to the end of the first drill hole. These drill holes take a long time. We're drilling with diamond drills in an unconsolidated basin. It's not ideal, but it is what 43-101 requires to get the right samples, to get our specific yield to put into a resource estimate. So they take quite a long time. We've been on the one hole for a month and a half, including stopping for Christmas break, etc. So I hope that answers the question.
Okay. All right. So next question. You mentioned your on-site pilot plant. So when is that expected to be complete?
The pilot plant's built. So we have, sorry, I should say we have 3 stages. The first 2 stages are built. One is the first stage we always go ahead is we build a laboratory. So we're doing things at a very small scale. We're talking buckets and pails. And then we've built the second stage, which is the pools on site. We have 50 pools about the size of a large office, 50 of those operating and evaporating, building out this 6% lithium concentrate. Those are operating, and the results from that should be in 2 to 3 months, depending on the evaporation rate. And that's more meaningful because that operates on site in real conditions. And then next week or the week after, we start construction of a 1-hectare pond that will operate continuously. So the pilot plant that we have, those pools, those 50 pools, those are batch processes, which means we start and then we go to 6% and it finishes, right? The pilot, the actual evaporation pond will be continuous. So it'll operate like a mine cycle.
Okay, all right, great. We have a minute left, so very quickly, any exploration plans at your Antofalla project?
So the Antofalla project is producing the calcium chloride plus lithium that we use to treat our brines. And it really contributes about 3% of the total operation. So we don't have big plans to spend a lot of money developing that yet. We'll focus now on getting our Pasto Grandes project construction ready, and take advantage of this cycle in lithium, which is really, really good, to try to advance this and finance it and start building.
All right, sounds great. Looks like you have a lot coming up this year. With that, William, I'd like to thank you for your presentation and everyone else on the line for joining us.